Hey everyone, thank you for joining me. I'm a guy called Joe, and this is Bootstrapping Tools Let's Build, where we do build throughs using different applications to help you, scrappy bootstrappers and entrepreneurs, get their business up to snuff, using technology to be more efficient with a smaller budget and a smaller team. Now, before we dive into today's episode, make sure to check out our YouTube channel. We got lots of videos on lots of different topics, as well as many different tools and many walkthroughs of different things. If you don't see an application that you do need help on, feel free to reach us at feedback@bootstrapping.tools, and we'll be happy to take a look at that tool and create a build through or a tutorial for you. But we go through lots of different types of tools. Google Data Studio is one of the examples for a BI tool. We've done Google Apps Scripts, Google Sheets, Retool, Airtable, as well as many others. So feel free to reach out if you are looking for something specific. Otherwise, check out the YouTube channel for all the great content that we do have. Now, today's video, we're actually going to be diving into Retool and Airtable, which this is actually part 6 of a multi-part series where we've been building out a kind of information management system for products. If you haven't used Airtable before, it's basically just like a spreadsheet on steroids. It gives you lots of opportunities and tools to do a little bit of scripting or make color coordinated or create forms out of it, but super cool tool. And we're using that as the pseudo database for our Retool application. So real quick, just a quick little review on what we've done so far. In the last video, we made it so that you could create updates to your Airtable information. So we click through for dime design and then Equerore chair. What we did was we added number 2 over to it, and then we updated the description so that it's just a chair and something super simple. Now, what we did notice when we were doing it, actually I'll show you right now, is when we edit this, let's say we edit this to -1, and we hit save and then close out this modal, you're actually not going to see the changes reflected immediately. So you have to actually click on dime design again so they can refetch the data, and then you'll see that it changes there. Now, what we'll do in today's video is we're going to show you how you can get around that. That way, as you save changes, it is immediately reflected on the UI without you needing to refresh the data. So first step is first, go over to the edit app button on the upper right, click on that. And then what we want to do is after you save or you make that request, we want to also rerun the information or the request to get the data back. There's a little bit of a trick to it. It's not as straightforward as just saying like, hey, run this search again. We actually need to create a couple of like different event handlers, as well as like post event triggers and a temporary state. So first thing that we're going to want to do is let's expand the query editor. We want the update furniture query, and this is the one that actually sends the update over to Airtable. We want on success for it to actually run the furniture's query. That way we're pulling the fresh information from the Airtable API. So once we have that in, let's save that. And then what this will do is this will update some of the information here, but not everything that we want. What we also want to do is we want to go over to our edit modal over here, and then to the save changes button 1. We're going to call another event, and instead of triggering a query, we're going to set a temporary state, and then we're going to set that state. We're going to do a new one here, and we're going to set that value actually over to the ID of the object, that furniture that we're using right now. So we're actually going to do double curly brackets, furniture click handler, data dot not 0, right? Yeah, so I dot, let's go through the whole thing first. 0 dot ID, and then we will change this to I. So that's basically what we want. We're going to set that value to it so that we have the information. So click on that, and just to show you what I mean, so we're basically using this same kind of format. Actually, that was a 0, so let's make that into a 0 as well. 1 second. I always forget which ones, when we're using 0 and when we're using I, but I think that should work. Okay, so now it's going to set the temporary state, and let's actually rename this state so that it's easy for us to update ourselves. I'm going to call this click handler helper. Sure, why not? That sounds about right. So now we have the information here. So there's a null value. So let's go ahead and edit this. We'll say this is -2 again, and we should see the temporary state update itself so that the value is that ID. My question is, why do we need this ID? Well, if we didn't have the ID, we wouldn't actually be able to set it up again so that we could see the information over here. So we see that when we updated the update furniture query to do a post action on getting the furniture again, we see that it updates here, but it doesn't update here, and we want it to update in both places. So what we will do here is, actually don't need the side over here, so we can close that out for now. We're going to want to do it on the click furniture handler. We're going to update this code so that it does an if statement over here. So what we'll do is if I, so that's I for the records part of it, if I equals undefined, then we're going to do one thing, and then if it's not, then we're going to do another. So we're going to take this, extract it out, we're going to do else, curly brackets, paste that in, and then for this one, actually this is too far. So then for this one, what we're going to do is we're going to return row.id equals click handler helper dot value, and that's double, not single. So we save this. Let's preview it. That looks good. If we run it, that also looks good. We close this down. So this all looks good now. Okay, so when we test this out, I'm gonna hit the edit button, and let's just revert this back to no numbers, and we hit save. So that updates, and I think we actually need to do one more thing before we can say it's done. Okay, so this worked, and this part is what we need to actually run. So now that it's not selected, we hit run again, and it updates here. So now then, the trick with this is going to be the save button. So once we hit the save button, we want that to have a post action of rerunning the furniture click handler. So we're going to look at this edit modal button over here, and then we're going to add a new event handler for trigger. Once the modal closes, then let's call that furniture click handler. Okay, so let's do that one more time. The query chair -1. We're going to hit save, and you're going to see organize furniture updated, update furniture ran, and then when we click out of this modal, it's going to update all the rest of it. And so now we have it updated in both places. So one more time before we move on here, we'll edit it. Get rid of the 1, save changes, the queries run, then we exit, and now it's updated in both places. That way you're always seeing the freshest data after you edit something. Now, so in today's video, the meat of it is actually that we're going to rearrange the layout, like we said we were going to in the previous part. We're going to make this a little bit nicer, better layout, better UX, all of that. So the way that we're going to do that is actually with a tabbed container. So I'm going to type in tabbed over to the components over here, and then this is the tabbed container, and we'll shove that right above all the rest of the content. Okay, stretch that all the way, and then you see there's tab 1 and tab 2. You can actually name these a couple of different ones. And we'll start to consolidate. So we have a general tab, and then let's do an orders tab, contact tab, whoop, and then other things that are pretty typical of like furniture or products is specs. So we'll have a specs tab, the general specs, orders. If we have multiple ones, we'll also do images as well. That way we have 5 tabs. 5 is a pretty good number for tabs. It's like, I would say usually go like 3 or 5. And then if you have to do more than that, you might not want to use tabs unless you have a lot of room on the window. But we'll start up with this for now. And then we'll start moving things into it. So this is the category. The category can, that makes sense. So let's put it into the general tab. Phone number information, that's going to be in the contacts. So just click over to the contacts tab and then start dragging and dropping information into it. So this is the showroom, which also makes sense to be over there. And then the contact info as well, we can drop in the notes. That's images. We can drag our image in here. And then if we go over to the specs, no, nothing yet. I think this one makes more sense. This is the settings, or where it's useful, that furniture where it belongs. So I think that goes well into general. And we'll start to add in different things like furniture description, goes into the general. I think that makes sense. And the dimensions, colors, materials, out of stock. I think out of stock probably belongs in the general as well. So we'll move this up there as well. Just drag it in. And then the rest of this, so dimensions and colors, and materials, I think we can put at least 2 of these into the specs tab, but let's put the colors into the general. I think that's one of those items that you probably want to see right off the bat. We can plop that right in here, and then we'll fix the layout later. So going over to our specs tab, let's take our dimensions, plop it in, and then also materials. And let's plop that in. Okay, and now you see, because we have it set up to hug the content, our container automatically just kind of shrinks. So to fix that, just click on the tabs container and then just extend this out again. Okay, more little, there we go. Okay, perfect. So now let's focus on the general tab. Now that we have a lot of the information here, let's actually refresh this. Now that we have a lot of the information kind of organized in a nicer way instead of just like one blob everywhere, and we already have the image here, so we don't necessarily need to see that same image. So we'll have a separate images tab here, and then we can actually call this image gallery or something like that. And I'll show you guys how to add in multiple pictures at once in like a dynamic way in another video. It's actually going to be using something very similar to what we're doing today, which is a custom component. And we're using a custom component for our settings and our colors. So let's actually start off with the colors first, because I think that's it's going to be easier. So we're going to get rid of this list view. So list view, one of the problems is that if you have a lot of colors, it's going to extend all the way down vertically, and you can so quickly run out of space on the screen. So we'll want to actually change that up a little bit. So we won't want this list view anymore. Let's actually move this down here, and let's rearrange this area a little bit. This furniture description, we can move this up to the top. And then, oh, right. And then the orders, we'll move the modal out into it later. So, okay, so for the custom component, I'm gonna go to insert, and you're gonna search the components for custom, and just drag that in, nicely drag and drop. And real quick before we dive into it, the custom component just lets you basically write React, so JavaScript React components into Retool directly, and it uses a framework called Material UI as a components library. So you can take a look at the documentation that they have. I forgot exactly what the site is, but if you search for Material UI, you'll be able to find it. Should be like top of the results for Google. And it does React. Let's actually take this and then pop it out so we can show you what it looks like. Pretty straightforward. If you've never used React before, it's pretty cool. We'll just dive in it together, so don't feel like you have to know a lot about it before this video. But what we're essentially going to do is we're going to change this up so that it uses what Material UI calls a grid list, and what that will do is we'll take the colors that are being provided to us in the Airtable data response, and then just iterate through however many colors there are, and then create essentially little boxes like we have on the screen here. Maybe it won't look exactly like that, but we'll maybe do like a pill or something similar. So I actually like this background color, so we can just copy that for now. We're going to save that in our little clipboard, and then we're going to use it in here. So what this is doing is it's calling out some of the components that are available in Material UI. So it's doing button, card, and card content. We actually don't care too much about all the card contents and all that, so we're not actually going to use those. What we are going to use is we're going to use what's called grid list and then grid list tile. This is actually a little weird right now. It's not clicking where I want it to click, so let's close this out. Sometimes this happens where Retool acts a little funny. But let's open that back up. It's going to listen to me now. Great. Okay, cool. So what we'll do here is we're going to do grid list and then grid list tile. All right, and now you see that it went blank. Don't panic. It needs to be blank because we're no longer calling card or card content or any of this other stuff. We're actually going to delete this out. So we're going to say goodbye to that. And then let's wrap this all into one div. So also another thing, if you're new to React, one of the things is that you can only return one element, like grouping together. You can't say send two divs, you have to send only one thing. So if you have multiple things to send, wrap it up in a div, and that's like, a quick way to do that. So here what we're going to do is we're going to say P is colors because we wanted to give it a nice title. P colors, and then now we're going to do grid list, should be capital G. And now grid list, you can see the documentation yourself. There's a couple of things that you need to pass through as like a parameter. One of those is cell height, and we're going to have this equal to just auto. That way we don't have to worry about setting the height for itself. And then we're going to do cols or columns, and we're going to, for now, let's just set it to 3 so that we can get this started. And then underneath of it, we're going to do modal colors.map. So before that, let's actually go over to our custom component. This is where it pulls the data into the component so they can register, display any of the information that we're looking for. So it's just simple JSON, so we'll do a comma here, and then we're going to say colors, and that is going to be equal to the furniture click handler data dot, so that's dot, we'll do the 0 first, dot fields dot colors. Okay, and now we'll change the data to I because we want it to change depending on whichever one you clicked. So now we have that, it's going to be colors. So now we can do modal dot colors dot map, and then within here we're going to say color is what we're referring to. Open up another parentheses, and then this is where we are going to actually write out our grid list tile code. So grid list tile is the name, and then the key is just going to be color. And we'll close that off, and then we'll just do a quick span here just to like display the information. So we'll do a P and then color, close out that P element, and then also the span element. And then we're going to also want to close out the grid list tile. So grid list tile. And now we will close out the entire grid list. All right, so we reload this. It's going to display information for us. Seems like no. Okay, we're probably missing something here, which is fine. Hold on, let's take a quick look here. What do we got? So not displaying any information right now. Custom components, display text. It all looks good to me. So we take a look at here, colors. We're sending out gray, green, red, white, and blue, purple in an array, which is correct. That does make sense. So then over here, we want to map that out so that each one, we just display the information. So whatever color that is. I'm doing an AP paragraph. So that's model dot colors dot map color. And then we got a fat arrow function, which displays everything that it should display. So why aren't you displaying any information is the question. This is when the developer like dev tools comes into play. It becomes really useful to have something like that. So let's see, maybe we're missing something. Whoop. Seems like Retool doesn't want to play nice right now. That's okay. Oh my god, what just happened? Where did my custom component go? Oh, there it is. Okay, so grids list tile. Okay, so it looks like I have a typo here. List tile. Okay, there we go. All right, so now what we have is we have the colors. We have gray, green, red, and I guess it's not big enough to display everything. So we can stretch that out a little bit and then we can see everything there. Great. Okay. So now this information is displaying, we'll see that, it's not exactly the same text or anything like that, but we can fix that fairly easily. So what we'll do is we'll go up to the top where the body is, and then we're going to say font family is equal to sans serif. And then now that looks pretty much similar to what we had before. All right, so styling wise, we're gonna try something really simple, nothing too crazy. We're just going to make it so that it's a little bit prettier. We'll give it a bit of background color and all that, and then a little bit of spacing and alignment. Basically just the normal stuff you would expect. So the way to put in additional styling is within the top between the style tags. That's where we're gonna put our classes. Since this is span and we're doing colors, let's just call it color underscore span to keep it simple. And not exactly the greatest name, but we'll use that for now. And then let's give it a couple of normal things. So let's say display is inline block. And then make sure, because this is React, we need semicolons instead of just commas. Actually, no, it's always semicolons. Yeah, it's always semicolons for CSS. I get confused sometimes with JavaScript, JSON, and all that. But we'll do display in block, inline block. And then before we actually do other things, let's say background color is going to be that nice little blue that we had before. So let's actually click into this. And we're going to take this blue. D4 E7 F7. So we'll have that. And then now we're going to give it our class name over here. So we will want this to be in the grid list tile. So we'll do class name equals color underscore span. All right, so now you see that it's got the background that's very similar. Now we just need to give it a little bit more styling. So let's give it a border radius to give that nice rounded edge. Border radius, and let's set that to 20 pixels. Gives a little bit of roundedness to it. And now the text also should be aligned to the center. Let's make sure the font color is always black. So we'll just do color equals that. And then let's see, the font weight, the font's a little thick, so we can do font weight equals to 250. So it gives it a little bit of more of a thinness to it. What else can we do here? We can, let's say, let's go to a little padding and stuff, right? Let's do padding 0, and then let's do 2 pixels. How's that? No, nothing. Oh, you know what we need to do? We need to give it justify content. Space around. Get a little bit more of that. Let's do max width. Let's do 30%. Okay. Line height. We'll set that to 8. Set margins to 2 pixels. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's see. Is there anything else we might do to it? Maybe we can set the font size a little bit. It does look a little bit bigger than what we had before. So let's say font size is 2 pixels. Sorry, 12 pixels. That's a little, oh wait, semicolon. And how's that look? That looks better. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now we have a custom component for colors. So that's looking pretty good. I think we can actually call that. So the thing we need to set up here now is that the columns is 3. We actually want it to be a little bit dynamic so that we don't have to worry about, it bleeding too much. So what we'll do here is we'll add another variable into our JSON here, and we'll call it color length, and we'll just set that equal to the furniture handler data. I dot fields dot color dot length. Okay, so color length is 5. Over here, what we'll do is we'll take the color length and then we'll set this to the columns 3 here. So this will be modal dot color length. So now it's going to go as far as it can. So we'll stretch that out, and that's basically our custom component that we're going to be using for our UI. That way that it gives us much nicer way of displaying the colors instead of a giant list that just goes up and down. It'll just display it as like rows, as like little tags. Like you see these pill-shaped tags a lot in different applications out there. So I actually think maybe this might be a little too wide. Let's say 25%. 20. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we can do that. I think that's fine. All right. So now we can clean this up a little bit. We can actually do the same thing for this one over here, but since there aren't that many categories to it, let's just go ahead and just say category next to it, and then it's markdown, so give it these 2 asterisks over here so that it displays. And actually we cannot do it in there because we're setting the background. So what we'll do instead is we'll put in a text field right next to it, and we'll say this is the category. We'll put the category chairs next to that, and we'll just rename this to categories. No hand wave. One line to the right, give it a colon, and that looks good. Okay, so we could probably actually make this say available colors instead. All right, so let's also put the furniture description down over here. Make that full width. And we're going to do basically the same thing for this list view. Same thing that we did for colors, we're going to do for this settings over here as well. So that way we don't have all this room down here. We can actually get rid of this color list view since we don't need it anymore. Save a little bit of room. Let's move the out of stock back up. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is we're going to, we're basically reusing it, so we'll just copy and paste. So copy and then paste it. And then instead of doing the colors, we'll update the code so that it looks at the settings. So over here, instead of field color, we'll do dot setting. So now we have office, bedroom, living, and living room, and we'll call this settings instead of color because we're no longer using colors. And then we'll say setting length is fields dot settings dot length. That's 3. So that's the information that we have there now. And then we're going to update our code here to just use the settings instead. And then we'll rename our class to setting span instead of color span. Rename this to setting length. And then this to settings. Setting, setting, and setting. Okay. So it says available colors, and then that, so we'll have to change that as well. It's not too difficult. So we'll say, what should we call this? We say good for these rooms. Okay. All right, well, that's basically the custom components. That's what I really wanted to show you guys. It's a much better way to do it as opposed to that verticalness here. And that's actually, let's give you a full view of what it looks like. So this, compared to this, it's much better on the eyes, and you get to use that horizontal space a lot more efficiently. So let's get rid of this list view again. We don't need that. And we can bring up the out of stock info to the top here now that we have a lot more room to play with. Okay, and of course, the whole thing, you can always give it a little bit more pizzazz or styling by adding horizontal dividers and things like that. Pretty straightforward. We're not going to do that right now. I think this is a good place to stop. We've done a lot. So we, as a quick review, we added in a tabs container so that we can organize our information a lot better. Between general information, specs, we have an image gallery that we're going to do next time, and we also have the contact info section as well, and then we'll move the orders in there another time. But we went through custom components, which is super cool. It's using React. If you haven't used React before, it's really cool. It's not too difficult. Just follow our instructions here, and you'll be able to get something like this up. And the way that Retool works is that it uses Material UI as the component library. That way it makes it really easy for someone developing on Retool to just bring in nice looking components that do a lot of the work for you. And we also fixed it so that as you update information, it would just trigger all the queries needed to refresh the page so that you're never looking at stale data after you make a change. Yeah, if you did run into any issues, or any trouble with that, feel free to, go to the comments and drop a comment for us. We'll take a look. We're happy to help you. But of course, if you did like this video, please make sure to hit that like button. It's the best way to support the channel and help other scrappy bootstrappers like yourself find this video and learn how to do the things that we're going to get everybody to do, to be more efficient by themselves, to work better on a budget, to have the tools and apps that you create yourself help you drive your business forward without without breaking the bank. And of course, this is part 6 of our multi-part series in building Retool with Airtable, specifically our information management system, where we're using a lot of different techniques and different components on Retool that you could probably use in another application. So make sure to hit that subscribe button, as well as hitting the bell so you get notified once the next part comes out. We also have a bunch of other different videos that are coming out week after week. We have community support, so make sure to drop that message into the comment section below if you do have any issues. We will make videos dedicated just to solving your issues or the troubles that you encounter through the community support videos. But that's it for this video, part 6 of our multi-part series for Retool and Airtable. I'm a guy called Joe. This is Bootstrapping Tools, and we're out.